All right, let's just jump right into this explainer and unpack what is easily one of the most daring, cinematic, and completely unsolved mysteries in American history. Seriously, we're talking about a story that sounds exactly like a Hollywood blockbuster, but it's 100% true. Picture this. It's November 24th, 1971, in Portland, Oregon. It's the day before Thanksgiving, right? People are traveling. A neatly dressed, incredibly polite guy carrying nothing but a black briefcase walks right up to an airport counter. He buys a one-way ticket and boards a commercial plane just like every other passenger heading home for the holidays. Now, literally, no one could have possibly imagined that in just a few short hours, this quiet, totally unassuming passenger would hijack the aircraft, demand a massive ransom of $200,000, which, by the way, was an absolute fortune back then, and then just vanish forever into the pitch black night. So how on earth did he pull this off? Let's get into it. Section 1. The Quiet Hijacker. Let's see how this unbelievable story began aboard Northwest Orient Flight 305, heading to Seattle. What's truly fascinating here is how completely ordinary this guy was. I mean, he bought his ticket under the name Dan Cooper. He looked to be around 40 years old, wore a standard black business suit, crisp white shirt, and a black tie. Throw in some dark sunglasses and that mysterious black briefcase, and you've got a guy who looks like a million other traveling businessmen in 1971. He didn't attract a single ounce of suspicion from the flight crew or his fellow passengers. Section 2. A chilling demand. This is where the tension quietly, almost invisibly, ratchets up right after takeoff. The man we now famously know as D.B. Cooper calmly calls over a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner and just hands her a folded piece of paper. Now, at first, thinking he was just another passenger trying to flirt with her, she slipped the note right into her pocket without even looking at it. But then, he calmly leaned forward and whispered, "Miss, you'd better read that note. I have a bomb." You can imagine her face just instantly turning pale. She unfolds the note, confirms this terrifying message, and sits down right beside him. Then, he slightly opens his black briefcase. Inside, she sees red cylinders, a mess of wires, and what looked like a battery. Now, to this day, whether that bomb was real or just a really clever prop, we don't actually know. But in that terrifying moment, miles up in the air, absolutely no one was going to take that risk. So the really crucial point here is his demeanor. Unlike most hijackers who rely on screaming or, frantic physical threats, Cooper never shouted. He never threatened anyone aggressively. He just calmly laid out these simple demands in exchange for the passenger's safety. Step 1, secure $200,000 in cash. Step 2, provide 4 parachutes. And step 3, have a fueled truck waiting at the Seattle airport so the plane could be refueled immediately upon landing. Simple, direct, and completely chilled out. 36. That's the number of innocent passengers on board whose lives were hanging in the balance here. If his demands were met, all 36 would walk away safely. Authorities on the ground felt they had absolutely no choice, so the FBI frantically scrambled into action. As the plane circled in a holding pattern above Seattle, the FBI started gathering the ransom. But they weren't just handing over free money, right? Officials cleverly photographed every single ransom bill so the serial numbers could be traced later. They were laying this massive invisible trap for the hijacker, really hoping he'd slip up the second he tried to spend it. Section 3. The leap into darkness. This is where a tense hostage situation transforms into a full-blown, high-altitude thriller. Okay, so after landing in Seattle, the money and parachutes are delivered just like he asked. Cooper counts the cash, and true to his word, he lets all 36 passengers safely disembark. At this point, only a skeleton crew of pilots and a few flight attendants remain on board. He orders the plane back into the sky, demanding they fly toward Mexico. Now, flying over the dark forests of the Pacific Northwest, Cooper initiates the climax of his plan. At exactly 8 p.m., a warning light flashes in the cockpit. The rear staircase of the jet had been lowered mid-flight. I really want you to put yourself in that cabin for a second. Outside, heavy rain is just pouring down. Strong winds are violently shaking the aircraft in a freezing, pitch-black night. And amidst this completely turbulent, freezing storm, D.B. Cooper walks down that rear staircase and literally jumps out into the abyss, carrying the ransom money. And just like that, he was gone, never to be seen again. Wild, right? Which brings us to Section 4. The massive FBI hunt. This brazen escape triggered one of the most extensive investigations in American history.
The FBI questioned thousands of suspects. They scoured thick forest, treacherous mountains, and deep rivers for years. And guess what? They turned up absolutely nothing, not a single trace of the man. The trail went completely cold until 9 years later.
So, 9 years after the hijacking, a young boy walking along the banks of the Columbia River stumbles upon something unbelievable. He unearths nearly $5,800 in decaying, rubber-banded ransom money buried right there in the sand. And when authorities checked the serial numbers, bam! They perfectly matched the FBI's records from that photographic trap they laid on the runway. Section 5, The Enduring Mystery. This incredible find by a child was the very first piece of real, physical evidence in nearly a decade. But, rather than solving the case, the buried money only deepened the mystery. We are essentially left with two deeply polarized theories. Did the money get buried there because of Theory 1? A lot of experts argue that the freezing storm and treacherous jump killed him instantly, and nature just washed his money downriver over the years. Or are you more a believer in Theory 2? Did he land safely, hide a portion of the cash, change his identity, and live out the rest of his days quietly as a wealthy man? Over the decades, investigators looked into hundreds of former soldiers, skydivers, and professional criminals, but neither side could ever definitively prove their theory.
Finally, in 2016, the authorities had to face reality. After more than 4 decades of active investigation, the FBI officially closed the case. The books were shut, acknowledging that only one person ever truly knew what happened that stormy night, and, well, he took that secret into the clouds with him. So I want to leave you with this haunting question to ponder. Who was D.B. Cooper? Was he a brilliant, calculating criminal mastermind who pulled off the ultimate heist, or simply the luckiest guy who ever disappeared into thin air? It's a fascinating piece of history, and it just goes to show how sometimes reality is way stranger than fiction. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you eager to keep questioning the unsolved mysteries.